Okay, hi everybody. David Paul with you, KHOU 11, Chief Meteorologist here in Houston, Texas, with your Tuesday evening Atlantic tropical update. Major Hurricane Sam continues to be the big and really only player in the Atlantic Basin right now as far as the developed system goes, but there are two tropical waves off the west coast of Africa that look interesting. We'll take a look at the computer runs on those as well. Where are we as far as names go? Well, we've had 19 named storms. We've only got Victor and Wanda left. If we run out of names, we've got a supplemental list. I'll show that to you here in just a second. But so far, it's 19 named storms, 7 hurricanes, and 4 major hurricanes. So when you look at the entire season, that does make it a busy season. Okay, supplemental list. If we run out of the last couple of names, Adria, Braylon, Caridad, Deshaun, Emery make up the first several names of our supplemental list, and it looks likely, I think we're going to at least get to 1 or 2 of these the way that things are going. Once again, normal season average over the past 30 years, we normally get 14 named storms in a season. We've had 19. We normally get 7 hurricanes. We're right at 7 right now with about 35% of the season left to go. Normally we get 3 major hurricanes, Cat 3 or higher. We're already above that with 4 major hurricanes now that Sam has gone Cat 3 and Cat 4 over the past several days. Why do these systems spin like they do in the first place? It has everything to do with something called the Coriolis effect. The basics of it are this. Planet Earth is a rotating sphere. It's like spinning a basketball on your finger. So the result is objects near the equator, the fat part of the ball, are going to be moving much faster, and in this case west to east, that's the rotational direction of Earth, much faster than they are the closer you get up to the pole, as the circumference of the rotational sphere shrinks and shrinks and shrinks and eventually shrinks down to nothing. So right at the North Pole, geographic North Pole, you end up with a rotational velocity of 0. At the equator, west to east, objects are moving at about 1,000 miles per hour. Right near the pole, they're moving much, much slower, almost 0 miles per hour. The effect that this has on objects that then move over that rotational velocity is this. If you throw a ball to the north, it will appear to bend off to the right. That's because, so it's bending off to the right. It's maintaining its 1,000-mile-an-hour rotational velocity from the equator, but as it moves north, floating over the surface of the planet, the speed, that rotational velocity, it's this much, and then it slows, it shrinks down. But that ball still has its 1,000-mile-an-hour velocity, so it appears to bend off to the right. This is in the northern hemisphere. Same thing if you throw a ball from the North Pole south. It will appear to bend off to the right, because as it gets closer to the equator, the planet's surface underneath that ball is moving faster and faster from west to east, and it appears that the ball is moving that way, bending off to the right as the Earth's surface moves underneath it. Again, it appears. That's the end result. So what does this have to do with hurricanes? So what you've got with a developing tropical system is an area of low pressure. And so air floating above the surface of the Earth wants to move in a straight line. It wants to go right toward the center of that low pressure, just right at it. But that's not what happens. Because of the Coriolis effect, as that air is moving toward that center, it wants to bend off to the right. It's forced to bend off to the right. So the end result is you get a balance of these two forces. You've got air that wants to go straight toward that low pressure, and because of the rotational velocity of the planet and the Coriolis effect, it also wants to bend off to the right. And the result is you get air that approaches at an angle and is forced to rotate as the two forces interact with each other. One that wants to go right toward that low pressure and the other that wants to bend it off to the right. And the result is you get counterclockwise rotation in low pressure systems in the northern hemisphere. And that is why we've got Hurricane Sam out there this evening. Winds at 130, moving northwest at 9, pressure 947, so that's down. We're going to go over that in just a second. Pressure's dropped back down. It's now back to Cat 4 status. Last night at this time it had dropped to Cat 3, but now we're back with winds of 130, so we're minimal Cat 4. Good looking hurricane on infrared satellite. So let's look at the pressures and the wind speeds over the past 18 hours. At 11 o'clock last night, we had a minimal central pressure of 956 and maximum sustained winds at 120. And ever since then, pressures have dropped and dropped and dropped, and the wind speed's gone up. As it dropped to 953 by 5 a.m. Tuesday morning, wind speeds were back up to 130. And the max winds have stayed at 130, but notice pressure. So 956, then 953, it's dropping. 952 by 11 a.m. on Tuesday, it's dropping, and then down to 947 as of 5 in the evening Eastern Standard Time on Tuesday evening with winds at 130. It's still intensifying out there. Wind shear is very, very light, and on visible satellite, it's just a tremendously impressive hurricane. And one thing that's really caught my eye is look at the low-level wind coming in at low levels. Watch this once again. You can see the little puffy cumulus clouds being sucked in. I can just almost feel that being sucked in like a straw. It's just pulled into that rotation. And you can also see on this visible, you can see the low-level clouds being just sucked in, but also now look at the top, the very wispy. Once again, watch it go and see how it's spreading out. So you've got winds blowing in different directions at different levels. At the surface, they're heading in toward the center of the storm surface-based system, and then up top, you got that exhaust where you've got exhaust, just perfect exhaust outflow way at the top of the atmosphere. So you've got your heat engine, which is what these things are, running very smoothly tonight with Hurricane Sam. It's gone through another eye wall replacement cycle, and it looks like it's in the middle of doing another one. So last night we talked about how the eye was looking a little bit ragged, and here we are yesterday evening with a ragged eye. It had spread out. Look what it did over the ensuing hours. It tightened right back up. We went from an eye that was 60 miles across to an eye right there, probably dropped down to about 10 miles across. As the skater pulls in their arms, that rotational velocity increases. It conserves that angular momentum. So the tighter that rotation, the smaller that focus of rotation, the faster the wind speed. So you can literally see that happening right here as the eye goes from a wide, slower speed to a very tight, intense. And then it's going through another eye wall replacement cycle. Notice how it's spread out again, but I expect over the coming hours you're going to see that center begin to tighten up and shrink and shrink. And I'm very curious to see if pressures will drop more and if this will strengthen over the next several hours. Upper level winds still favorable. I don't see any significant shear out ahead of it. We can see what's going to steer the storm eventually. There's that big trough off the east coast that we talked about over the last several days. We were hoping it would dig down and get in place to not only keep it off the east coast of the U.S., but hopefully get there and deep enough in time to spare San Juan, Puerto Rico, and the Antilles Islands here. And that's what's happening. This is going to stay off the Antilles Islands. Great news for the U.S. and British Virgin Islands, Barbuda, and the islands down here. I'm very happy for you guys. You don't need one of these. And then here's Bermuda. So this is going to be a close call with Bermuda, but the trough looks like it's in place to perhaps also have this move to the east, so Bermuda would be on the weak side of that system as it passes through. Here's the forecast track from the Hurricane Center, missing the Caribbean islands. And this also has it, most likely missing Bermuda by several hundred miles. Close call with a Cat 3. That's going to be Friday and Saturday. Spaghetti plots, again, tightly clustered, and they do miss Bermuda. Not by a whole lot, but I'm hoping this forecast holds. You don't need a Cat 3 Bermuda. You'd get a lot of wind, a lot of wave activity from this as it moves by. This is going to be as we get into Saturday, Sunday, Monday. But you'd miss a direct hit. And then further out in time, a lot of the spaghetti plots still curving this back and perhaps impacting St. John's, Newfoundland. However, many of the model runs are further off the coast of Newfoundland, and our two big global models, the GFS in yellow and the Euro in red, are in very tight agreement that not only does it miss the islands, and then it also misses Bermuda. There's Bermuda, several hundred miles to the east would be where the storm would pass. When the GFS and the Euro really get together on something, it gives us good confidence that this is a forecast we can sink our teeth into. And then moving forward, going into Sunday, Monday afternoon, here's Newfoundland, there's Nova Scotia, And both of these are well off the coast. Now, a couple of earlier runs the past several days sometimes wanted to curve this back, but that's not what's happening in the run this evening. They both zip this off into the North Atlantic, and then that will be the end of them as they'll begin to lose their tropical characteristics. Still a lot of isobars stacked up just off the coast of Newfoundland. So very windy out there as we head into early next week. That's a week out. Okay, so that's Sam. This little spot here in Sam's potential path, 30% chance for development. Models are not aggressively picking up on that. Again, I've put that on the back burner. We've got enough to talk about. These two waves down here, the first one now has dropped from a 90% chance for development to a 60% chance for development over the next 5 days. The spot that's come off, that's closer to the west coast of Africa, is looking much more healthy. So it's got a 90% chance for development. So let's check out the model runs on this. GFS again in yellow, Euro in red. And it's interesting. So here's our more aggressive wave with a 90% chance for development, looking healthy. Here's our first wave, which is not as aggressive in its development as far as the models are depicting. So we go into Wednesday, we go into Thursday afternoon, maybe a tropical storm, maybe a depression. The American model picks up on it. The European does not pick up on that first one, but they both pick up on wave number 2. So that's Thursday. Just to set your bearings, there's Sam missing the islands of the Caribbean. Here's the west coast of Africa. So we go into Friday, we go into Saturday, and still only the American picks up on this, and it's a weak little system here, wave number 1. The European does not close off a low, so that makes me suspicious that something may not even form out here with this. Euro and American do pick up on this tropical storm potential as we head into Saturday, open Atlantic. We go further out in time, and this really doesn't do much, the GFS with this. Maybe a weak system struggling to survive. The Euro and the GFS do both create tropical entities, tropical storm probably out here in the open Atlantic, but notice this trend is already beginning to move toward the north and the open waters of the Atlantic. So that's Sunday. We'll go further out into Monday, Tuesday, and you notice the GFS completely loses anything tropical heading toward the islands. So at the moment, not a significant threat for you guys. The Euro doesn't pick up on it. The American is very weak and opens it back up before it has any type of significant impact for y'all on the islands. Something we'll watch, but that's the way it stands right now. That's good news. And then the system number 2, again, perhaps a named system, but moving well north into the open Atlantic on Tuesday, and no significant threat. No significant threat. The Azores may have to deal with it. That's where we stand this evening. So Sam, a big Cat 4, but hopefully impacts very minimal to people. Questions, comments, leave them down below. Hit me up on social, and we'll see you tomorrow for another update.